Welcome to the Wholesaling Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Chris Arnold. As always, we are excited that you are with us today. So you know me, I'm going to come out and tell you right on the bat, like what we're going to talk about and what you're going to get from this podcast. It's going to be twofold. I am excited to have my guest on who is part of the Rhino tribe, Dan DeLeo. And we're going to talk about two things. You know, and it's funny because I remember this as well. When do you quit the 9 to 5? If you're 25, 27 years old and you want to do real estate full time, you can walk in and, drop the mic pretty quick on your boss and walk out because, I remember being there, like you can live off ramen noodles, like you can live off like $1,500 a month. I know when I started real estate, like I was in a house with a couple buddies like from college when I was 25 years old. So, if I closed a deal, like I was good for like 3 months, but how do you make that same decision when you're in your late 30s and 40s and you have 3, 4, 5 kids and a wife? How do you like navigate that terrain? Because your decision, there's a lot more at risk. And so what we're going to talk about today with Dan is like how he went through that process and quit his 9 to 5. And then on top of that, we're going to talk about radio and the fact that this guy has been on for 2 months live and closed on the books $81,000 in revenue off of radio in 2 months. And so, man, that's a big deal. So I'm excited for you guys to hear about that as well. So Dan, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you.
Chris, so pumped to be here. Really appreciate you having me. And it's a great way to start the week. So look forward to chatting with you today.
Well, let's do it, man. So for those that don't know your background to the rest of the tribe members, man, tell us a little bit about where you come from, man. Give us a snapshot of you.
Awesome. So I'm in North Carolina, and I come from a background kind of in the corporate world. Honestly, had a 15-year run, both in supply chain management and then a service industry. I've got a wonderful wife, 3 awesome kids, 9, 6, and 4. They keep things lively around the house.
I bet they do.
so that's been a lot of fun. Started investing in real estate 6.5 years ago. And through that process, I started kind of as a side hustle, like a lot of folks do, and self-taught, spent a lot of time networking and learning, wholesaling, flipping, and buying and holding houses. So that's kind of the deal.
Absolutely. And so what type of real estate are you focused on right now? Whether that's wholesale, building a rental portfolio, like what's your lane?
So I like to consider myself a deal engineer, to be honest. My thing is, I want to create passive income. I love passive income is great, but to get there, I kind of look at it and you hear this from folks. There's 3 different kind of checks, right? There's quick checks, the wholesale. There's fat checks, flipping houses, and there's forever checks.
Well said. I like that.
And so really, I like checks of any kind. I'll take them all, but I'm probably 60% wholesale, 30% flipping, and 10% buy and hold right now, all single family.
Absolutely. Okay. So here's my question. We're going to be talking about how you got out of that 9 to 5 corporate world, but let me begin with this. When you started that side hustle, when did you start to get that feeling of like, man, I can't wait for the day that I get to walk away from this corporate job and do this whole real estate thing that I love full time? Like, when did that kick in for you in the 6.5 years? Was that like year 1, year 2?
Day 1, honestly.
Day 1.
I mean, I love real estate. I was always intrigued by real estate, but I had to kind of get myself to believe that I could be successful with real estate. And that came through taking action over a period of time for me. And so I would say probably in the second year that I was investing in real estate, it went from, hey, this would be a cool way to make a little bit extra money in addition to my job, to, holy cow, this is the vehicle that could be the rest of my life. Not only do I love doing it, not only is the opportunity there, but I can support my family doing this. So how do I get from point A to point B and make this a life. And so between year one and year two, I would say, Chris.
Okay. And in your 6.5 journey process of doing real estate, when was it that you actually walked away from the job? How long did it take?
So it took me till almost the end of my 4th year. So I was a good 4 years in, and finally made the jump, and haven't looked back ever since. Been having fun ever since.
Right. And so that's what's interesting. The desire to walk away came much earlier than when you knew it was actually wise and practical to walk away. So here's what you wanted to share. You wanted to share kind of 3 things that you would tell those that are, hey, when you're in my life circumstance, right? You've got a few kids, you got more responsibilities, you're not 25 years old, able to live off of a very small budget per month. This was kind of my journey and how I did it. So the first thing you said was you didn't just let it be a desire. You actually wrote out a plan, a roadmap for your exit out of the day-to-day. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Right. So, it's pretty straightforward. And again, if I were 23, I'd have pieced out of my 9 to 5 in year one, year two at the latest. But I had a responsibility, and I'm sure a lot of listeners feel the same way. It's like, this would have been great to have thought about 15 years ago, but here I am. I have a wife who is awesome and supportive, but does want food on the table. I've got 3 little kids. When I started my business, we had just had our second, and so I have 3 children under 10 years old, and I love them to death, and I want them to have every opportunity in the world. So I couldn't be selfish and walk away from a job without a plan in place to ensure their quality of life. So again, I think there's a lot of folks that are in that spot. And what I would tell them is it's doable. Don't get lost in what's on social media. You have to do this, you have to do that. Put a plan in place that works for you, works for your family in your life. That way you're taking hope and you're turning it into a firm plan. So whether that's, hey, I need to generate X amount of money in passive income each year to cover my bills, or I need to do so many deals each year. It's a little bit different for each person. Some people don't want rental properties. They want to focus on the capital growth, or vice versa. It doesn't matter what your plan is, but you need to take a plan and then just start chipping away at it and take action. Again, don't just hope, but take action and take a step forward every single day on that plan that you put in place. And you'll get there quicker than you think. Once you've got it written down,
I agree.
you'll get there.
Yeah. So here's what I think though is good about what you're saying. As practical as it is, and as common sense as it is to create a plan, I would probably ask those listening right now that want to exit out of the day-to-day, have you actually written down the plan? Not some plan that you have in your head, but have you documented even down to the numerical amounts of what you need? But I love the psychology of what you did for yourself, because you had to manage the desire to want to leave with also the knowing and wisdom of when to do that. But I'm sure getting those little wins on that plan, although I haven't dropped the mic and walked out on my boss just yet, I know that through these steps, I can see myself getting closer. So I'm sure that helped kind of mitigate that desire. They kind of call it the entrepreneurial seizure of wanting to get out. Like I imagine that was just good for your brain and how to manage those emotions. Is that accurate?
That is super accurate. You absolutely have to write down your goals. They have to be tangible. I mean, I look at mine every single day, short, medium, and long-term goals. And that, 1, it keeps you on track, but 2, it motivates you. When you're checking the boxes off on that plan, that momentum builds and builds and builds. And if you're like me, you're on one hand, the pool is this frustration of like, boy, I can't wait. I want it to be the day that I can walk out of that office and do what I want forever on my own. But on the flip side, you keep yourself in check and motivated by seeing that progress that you're making. So absolutely, you've got to write it down and then enjoy those moments when you're checking the boxes off of that list.
Agreed. It's good for the mindset. And I want to go back to something you just said, because it's something I do as well. So I hope the listeners caught it. I'm like Dan. I look at actually my goals every day. Now, when I say every day, that's Monday through Friday. Saturday, Sunday, I try to clear my head and not be so business mindseted. But part of my morning ritual is to look through all the goals that I've set for myself, both on the business and personal side, because it's an anchor for me to keep me from chasing shiny objects and focus on what I set out for the year to do. So you got two people on this podcast telling you that that's a good discipline, because I know a lot of people always like to ask that question, what disciplines do you have in place? What's your morning ritual look like? I do that as well, Dan. Awesome. Number two, and this is just kind of a mindset, you felt like, number one, have a plan, but number two, patience. Patience. Now, I think people are hearing that, but elaborate on that and make it a little bit more practical. What did patience look like for you through this process?
It's easier said than done. So let me start with that. When you're excited about what you're doing, the track that you're on, I mean, you want to go day one. But particularly when you're in my spot and you have a family, you've got to be patient and make sure you get to that goal. Don't jump prematurely. At the same time, you kind of have to find the sweet spot. You don't want to wait till years after you were ready, but at the same time, you don't want to jump when you're halfway there. So again, back to having a plan in place, I knew exactly how much monthly income I wanted to have from my real estate business before I made the jump. And in my own case, and this isn't for everybody, but I got to that number, and then I waited a few months longer, and I said, padding that number a little bit and being patient, that could allow me to compound the growth of where I'm going, because now I've got that money to do what I want to do. But what if I invest a little more? How quickly could I turn that into, X plus 2 or plus 3 and really set my family up? So being patient isn't a bad thing. It's hard, and I'm not saying to do it to be so patient that you're missing the opportunity. But know yourself and know your situation and make sure you're in a good spot, and then jump and make it happen.
Absolutely. We have a saying that we use in our company all the time, and I tell this to a lot of buddies. You got to have both right action and right timing.
Yes.
You have the right action in the wrong time, it's not time to move forward. And it might be the right time and the wrong action. So I always tell people, is this right action, right time? And so I think for you, it's like, yeah, this is the right action. But what I've got to determine via patience is the right time. And when those two things collide, then you can move forward and make the appropriate right decision. So I love that. Another great principle. Number three, choose a lane, stay focused. I always like to say there is a correlation between having a diluted focus and a diluted bank account. And so it's very true. The more you look at people that are successful, the more focused they become. I think I heard Warren Buffett say one time that the one thing that I know about myself is I say no to just about everything, which is hard to do. Yeah. So there's so much to do in real estate. There's so many opportunities. That's the problem. So what you found is if you wanted to make this exit that you planned out for yourself, you needed to find your lane. You needed to get right on a certain aspect of real estate. Talk a little bit more about that and what that looked like for you.
Yeah, so I'm not a great reader. My wife gives me a hard time about it. I don't read a ton of books, but I try to read as many as I can. And one that I read that really helped me was The One Thing by Gary Keller, which talks a lot about, finding your one thing, focusing on that, and just kind of having laser vision for, what is that thing that if you, by doing that one thing, everything else is going to fall into place for you and become simpler. And so, as I kind of lasered in on what my one thing or what my focus area was going to be for real estate, I knew for me, it was single family investments. It was wholesaling, flipping, and buying and holding single family investments. And it's so easy right now to get distracted by some of these shiny objects that are out there. And when I say shiny object, really that applies to anything that maybe is not your immediate focus. So just, I just explained kind of where my focus is. For somebody else, it might be self-storage, or somebody else, it might be apartment syndication. All those are cool, but my advice would be choose where you want to play and know you can't be everything to everyone, and just stay focused on where you want to be, because you're going to get from point A to point B so much faster. So single family was my cup of tea, and it's really helped me. It's really kept me on track for where I want to be. But wherever you decide to play, just hone in and be an expert on your area and your lane, and it's going to get you where you want to go a lot faster.
Agreed. One of my favorite quotes is by a guy they call Prof, who is a professor in Dallas. And he used to say, there are many things that I can do, but there's one thing that I must do. The secret of concentration is elimination. And I've always really held to that we have to eliminate all of those things in our life that aren't really focused around that one thing that we should do. And if you ask me why I see a lot of people struggle is, I take a look at their business because they come to me for coaching. And usually I find that they're just doing way too many things at the same time, just completely diluted focus. And I don't know any of us as entrepreneurs that don't go down that path, feel the pain of that, and then learn the power of focus. So it's part of the entrepreneurial journey. So I love those, man. So number one, create a written plan, take action on it piece by piece, and get the joy of marking your journey closer to your exit. Number two, be patient, right action, right time. And number three, stay focused, choose a lane because it's going to get you out of the 9 to 5 faster if you become an expert at one thing rather than a jack of trade at a lot of things. So that's just great practical advice come from a guy that you guys are listening to today, and that goes, I've been there, I've done that. And I'm a guy that had 3 kids, not in my 20s anymore, did corporate world. And I actually made the exit. Like, I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do, as you said, from the day one that I stepped into real estate. So I love it. So let's transition real quick. Let's talk about radio, right? Yeah. So we came at the front of the hour when we started this thing today, and I want to paint some context here, right? You've been on radio, like live, when we say on radio, running advertisement live for a total of 2 months.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And in that 2 months, how many stations are you advertising on?
I'm on 3 stations right now.
Okay. So the first thing I want you to hear, if you're listening, is not like you got to come in and slow play radio. If you do it right, and I think you guys are listening to Dan going, this is a pretty systematic, methodical guy. He's come in and he got on 3 stations in the first 60 days. That's aggressive, and I love it. Now, how much are you paying in total monthly for all 3 stations?
Total monthly for all 3, I'm at $1,370 a month.
$1,370 a month. That's all 3 stations combined.
That's total for all 3 stations.
That's 1,300. Did I get that right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So that means on average, each station that you're on is costing you about $450, give or take. Is that about right, per month?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So the first thing I always tell people is radio is very affordable. This is what keeps people away from radio. I made the assumption, as everyone else does, well, I got to be paying, $10,000 a month to even start radio. Dan's over here running on 3 stations at $450 a month. Now, from that, you've closed and funded on 3 deals. When I say funded, that means money back to you, made profit on. And the total of those 3 deals has been $81,000.
$81,000 total. Yes, correct.
Okay. So let's break those down. Wholesale, kind of what made up that $81,000 of those 3 deals? Did you wholesale them? Did you fix and flip? What did that look like?
All 3 of those were wholesale deals. All 3 were wholesales.
Okay. Yeah. And was that one big pop in there? As you said, I loved earlier, quick money, fat money, forever money.
Right.
Was that one just fat deal and 2 little small deals, or how was that broken down?
That was 1 small deal and 2 pretty fat deals.
Okay.
Now the small deal, again, I mean, there's small deals are good deals too. And let me tell you, that small deal I did, I'm right now, in fact, I just spoke with her this morning, about to close a second house from that same lead.
So they got more than 1 home, or did they replace?
Yes, it was a landlord that wants to downsize, had more than 1 property. So she reached out from my ad on the one, And one of the tips I would tell everybody is always ask a seller if they have other properties. Always, no matter what.
Agreed. As funny as that, though, is that if you don't ask, you could find out later that they do, and they simply didn't ask. They might not tell you.
Exactly.
It's actually really good practical advice, Dan.
Yeah. So I got talking with her, and she needed help with this one house, and she had not been able to sell it for a year, and just didn't know where to turn. And I said, hey, let me market it for you. And 2 weeks later, we had it sold. So took care of that one. Yeah. And then the other two have been larger deals.
Larger deals. So again, I just wanted to be sure that you just didn't get lucky on one big pot. This has been pretty well distributed or allocated between the three. So 2 sizable deals, 1 small deal. Now, I don't even have a calculator to do that math because I can't do it in my head, but at $2,700 with 81,000, that's a pretty high dollar per dollar return. So let me step back. If someone's listening, like, okay, I'm starting to get to know this guy, Dan. This guy is methodical. He's systematic. He is thinking through his decisions before he makes them. You could have gone out and you could have chose any marketing channel. I mean, there are a lot out there to choose from at this point, even particularly with technology. Why radio? Why did you choose that source?
Lack of competition, honestly, was the first thing. There just aren't. I mean, I go into someone's house and they've literally got 40 direct mail pieces on a table. And I do direct mail as well, but the competition there is fierce. And so I was at a program talking to some other investors last fall, and one of the gentlemen had been on radio through your program. And we got to talking about it. And I on the flight home, I was like, dang, and I had listened to the podcast, but it really made it real to me to kind of back up the podcast with that discussion. I was like, I got to look into this. This is crazy. And so, I mean, radio, the biggest things I've seen, there's less competition. And then the other thing is it's crazy to me, just the amount of credibility that radio has brought to my business. I've been marketing for 6.5 years, but what's happening now is I get people will call as soon as the ad runs. People will call and they'll be like, "Hey, I'd gotten a direct mailer from you 2 years ago, or I'd seen your billboard, and then I heard you on the radio, and I had to call." And it brings everything together. And they're like, if this person, and in their mind, I'm spending a ton of money on radio.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, this guy's everywhere. Like, this guy must have a serious budget. They don't understand, right?
No, they're like, if this guy's on radio, he's got to be legit. So it's just been mind blowing how that credibility has impacted the quality of the leads we're getting. It's been awesome.
Okay. So now that you're up and running, and again, the competition piece, like, we can't understate that. I think I might have told this before on a podcast, but Tony Hsieh, right, with Zappos, wrote a book, called Delivering Happiness. Great book. And, after he sold Zappos, he got into playing professional poker. And he said, here's some principles I learned from that. And he said, one of the most important principles I learned is when I walk into a room, the most important decision I ever make is what table I sit down to play at. It doesn't matter how skilled I am, how great I am at poker, how experienced I am. If I sit at an overcrowded table, I'm not going to win like I would if I sit at a table that's not overcrowded. Right. And so when it comes to marketing, I always remind people, yeah, it might work, but if every other wholesaler in the US is doing it, I don't care how effectively you're doing it, it's just saturated. And so I think it's important to find the outlier channels that exist that nobody's using. And again, what's funny, that it's literally comical about radio, is it's the channel that everyone knows about, but nobody's using. So it's like it just went under the radar for everybody, right? It's almost like you sit back and scratch your head and go, how was that missed? Radio's been around forever, before TV. So besides the fact that, you love that you don't have competition, it's a force multiplier for what you're doing with direct mail and so forth. What might be kind of one last thing that you've appreciated about this channel for you? Maybe tying it back into where you're at in life with 3 kids.
Right. Well, it's funny you bring that up, because my kids have heard the ad, heard my ads, and they're like, Dad, do your radio voice for us. Do your
The radio voice.
So I'm kind of become like a celebrity in my own house, which is kind of cool too. You know, it's hard to get your kids to appreciate you, but they like that. So I've had to do that more than once at the dinner table. But, you know, the other thing is, it is definitely that these are warm leads coming through to us. And
Yeah.
for years, you know, going back to my story, like I had a plan and I wanted to get to that plan as quick as I could. I spent a lot of nights up writing out direct mail pieces and a lot of time online marketing my business. And that's great. I still do those things. But the return rate on that stuff is so low, you know, because you're with outbound marketing like that, you're sending it and you're hoping you hit the right person. With radio, the best part is when I know that when that phone rings, they're motivated. I feel like I'm, you know, I feel like I'm starting with the bases loaded already. You know, it's
Well said. That's a great analogy versus something where you're just sifting through trying to find, you know, a gold nugget and all of the, you know, dirt that surrounds that, right? And on
exactly.
top of that, unfortunately, the dirt that surrounds that a lot of times is yelling at you because you spam them, which makes it even harder to keep mining away for that one piece of gold.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you know, in this business, you have to have thick skin and get used to rejection. But why beat your head off the wall just taking that as the accepted way of doing business when there's such a better way to make it happen? And that's what I came to realize was just, my goodness, for somebody to stop and pick up their phone and to call me, they're motivated to do that. So don't miss that call. Listen to what their problem is, help them solve that problem, and you're going to get more deals than you ever have before because you're set up in such a great spot.
Absolutely. And, you know, having high quality leads come in, knowing, I like what you said, knowing that when the phone rings, the person that's calling is motivated and wanting to talk to you, man. I'm about building businesses that I enjoy, not businesses that beat me down, you know?
Right.
So if there's an easier way, then I'm going to take it. And what I mean by easier is smarter. If there's a smarter way to do this, then I'm going to take it. So if you're listening, you're like, man, this radio thing I've been kind of chewing on and thinking about. You got a guy like Dan that comes in and goes, you know what, based on day one with my goals and wanting to exit the business and how I want to build this business, support my family and having a lifestyle to spend time with my kids, then radio might be that thing that you're looking for. So as always, go to wholesalinginc.com/REI radio. Again, wholesalinginc.com/REI radio. Book a call, see if your market's open. Obviously, at this point, we've got a good amount of markets that have been taken, and moats have been drawn around them because when it's working, people are like, man, this is my spot, man. So I totally get it. So Dan, great practical wisdom, man. I appreciate you coming in and talking about something I know for some of the audience today was just super valuable. And that is, I have a desire to exit out of my day-to-day. But, you know, I'm a dad, I'm a husband. I need to be a good steward of my family. I'm responsible for them. And so I have to somehow take the dream that I have and also figure out how that collides with the responsibilities and practicalities of what I got to deal with waking up every day. And that's tough, right? Because it's what I want and what's best for my family. And man, I think you modeled a really great job of what it looks like to navigate that path and to do it right. And I even go back to what you said, even when I was there, I had just enough patience to kick back a little bit longer because I knew if I put a little bit more cushion in the bank, I could grow my business faster. Man, that shows a lot of self-discipline. You're playing the long game, not the short game here. So man, I really value that. So thank you so much for coming on today. Fantastic job. And man, to the tribe, just want to tell you, man, I'm super proud of you, Dan, for coming in, following instructions, crushing it, and closing 81,000 in the first 2 months, man. You did it right. So to the rest of you guys, thank you so much. And until next time, we will talk to you soon when we add more value. Talk to you later.